here at 4.
Next stop, Share.
It's already been a very busy start to the work week. I'm your host here, Anita Blanton, and I'll be with you through the 4 o'clock hour. So let's talk about some of the things that we have coming up in this first hour that we have together. And keep in mind here that at any moment we are expecting some breaking news related to the White House Correspondents Dinner. And you can see the mics are up. We call that a rake in TV news when all of the different channels, networks, all have their mics sitting there waiting for someone to come out. This will be right out of court here, where we expect the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting suspect to have his first court appearance today. As soon as that is over, we expect someone to come before that rake and talk about what happened inside of the courthouse. And just as soon as it does, we're going to take you there live, okay? So all of these things that I'm going to tell you about that are planned are kind of on a sliding scale. I said all of that to say that because we've planned some things for you, but obviously the breaking news will come first. So right around 1:45, we anticipate having a discussion about Bank of America announcing that the old guitarist by Pablo Picasso, one of the Art Institute of Chicago's most iconic works, that is going to undergo conservation. This is funded by their Art Conservation Project. Very interesting that we're saying thank you to Bank of America for this. But yeah, they have this project. This is one of just 18 works selected globally this year for them to restore great works of art. And we have the Global Arts, Culture, and Heritage Executive of Bank of America. If you didn't know they had one, we're going to talk to him. And he's going to be joining us right around 1:45 again. We anticipate that happening. We're also going to have a discussion about gas prices and fertilizer and all of the things that have skyrocketed in price as a result of the war in Iran for farmers. So many of them in our state and throughout the country for that matter, but so many of them in our state especially that are really getting hit hard from multiple different angles when it comes to what's happening miles and miles away that's hitting home for them. We'll have an analyst from Gas Buddy to talk a little bit about what we're seeing throughout the Midwest because I'm in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and of course Illinois, all being hit hard. And we'll talk about the demand for farmers, but then also just everyday folks if you're going to go fill up at the gas station as well. Those things are to come, but really looking forward to this first discussion here about your dreams. Are you ready for this? I know it's like the weather outside is really frightful today. It probably makes you want to go back to sleep when you look outside and you see a sight like this, and we're going to talk more about the weather for sure. But if you have a bad dream, it could possibly put you in a bad mood for the rest of the day. But what's the why behind it? What is the science behind it here? We're actually hearing more about the research behind this not just a notion, but the facts here. And I want to bring in our first guest to talk a little bit about it. Thank you so much for your time, Garrett.
Thank you so much, Anita. Pleasure to join you.
You are the co-author of this study, meaning you know the know-how. Explain it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were kind of guided by a leading theory of dreams that actually having frightening dreams might be helpful, believe it or not. So we wanted to put this to the test. And the idea basically goes that being afraid in our dreams might help us better handle those negative emotions we feel in the day, just as a therapist can effectively help patients overcome, fear with exposure therapy, if we've heard about that, right? And so, we use some bigger data than a lot of other studies. We use some neat machine learning tricks to rate emotion out of dream reports that people write out. And we also just teased apart how things look more on the day-to-day versus things that are really explainable by people themselves. This came from a bigger study by Dr. Tony Cunningham at Harvard Medical School. We looked at day-to-day sleep and well-being, just using some online surveys during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I am a PhD student. I did this work as part of my thesis at the University of Kansas with the help of my co-authors and PhD advisor, Dr. Nancy Hamilton, as well as some co-authors here at KU, Stanford, and Harvard. Big long list of folks to thank. So sure.
Well, listen, here's where I'm a bit confused because
Sure.
so often we don't even remember our dreams. So how can they affect us in such an impactful way?
That's a great question. And yeah, we don't always remember our dreams. And so how we're dealing with that right now in science is really tackling just the dreams that folks do remember, right? And so it's not unusual at all, and we don't consider it unhealthy when people don't remember their dreams. That's pretty typical. But what about when you do? Is it a marker of something? How do we interpret that? And again, we wanted to put to the test, is a bad dream a bad thing, or is it actually helpful? And what we found was a little bit of a complex answer. So as you said, Anita, having a bad dream, a frightening dream, shows up in the short term as a bad mood the next day. But weirdly, at the same time, we looked at how people say they are generally handling their emotions. How do you do when strong emotions come up and managing those? And what was weird is that in the long term, people who said that they're better at handling their emotions in the day, they had more scary dreams. So isn't that strange, where there's that short term, hey, my day might be a little bit worse from the bad dream, but at the same time, maybe that's a marker of resilience, where it's helping people work through and process their emotions.
Without our knowledge. Very interesting. Yeah. So I'm seeing here that if you have part fear, part joy in a dream that you actually do remember, then that helps to mellow things out. So really it is like a weird science of calming out your anxiety in your dreams.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. And that's part of what I mean when I say it's a little more complicated than the original theory might have thought, where exactly right. When people experienced both fear and joy at the same time in their dreams, they were less likely to feel negative feelings the next day. And how I'm reading that is a couple ways, where if we can feel things more complexly, right, more complex emotions, that might be a marker of resilience. And another leading recent work calls this a cathartic dream, where maybe it goes from bad to better, right? So you have a scary dream that tends to maybe resolve. We think we might have caught that, and that might be what we're seeing too.
So what do we take from this? Since we
Sure.
can't control our dreams, like what do we do with this information?
Absolutely. Well, I think one thing we can do is maybe just kind of normalize, hey, if I'm someone who tends to have kind of bad or scary dreams, that it might be a sign of our brain just kind of healing, working through things. Now, at the same time, I want to be real careful, and an interest of mine is also looking at nightmares, and we didn't do that per se here. And so I would encourage anyone who might struggle chronically with nightmares, there are some effective treatments out there, and that should be addressed. However, for the average person who just has those occasional bad dreams, that's okay, and it might actually be helpful long term.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I had a recurring dream for several years when I was growing up, and I did have my dream analyzed at one point in time in life, and it was very similar to our conversation today. I'm sorry, we'll have to continue our conversation another day. We do have breaking news right now. We want to get the very latest on the White House Correspondents Dinner shooting suspect who has his first initial court appearance today. Right now, we are breaking into your coverage both here online and also on air.
Good afternoon. I'm Rich Edson in Washington. The man accused of trying to assassinate President Trump and members of his administration has just had his first court appearance. 31-year-old Cole Allen was brought before a federal judge less than 48 hours after he blew through Secret Service agents and security checkpoints at the Washington Hilton. Allen appeared before Magistrate Judge Matthew Sharbaugh just moments ago. He was wearing a blue prison jumpsuit, and now we know more about why and what he's being charged with. He's facing 3 counts. Count 1, attempting to assassinate the President of the United States. That comes with a maximum sentence of life in prison. Count 2 is transporting firearms across state lines. He could face up to 10 years in prison for that and a $250,000 fine. And count 3, discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. That comes with a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. The initial appearance comes as the investigation into Allen is intensifying. He's thought to have acted alone when he tried to shoot his way into the White House Correspondents Association annual benefit dinner on Saturday night. After a brief gunfire, he was taken down by law enforcement. There were no serious injuries. We are told he was talkative with authorities once he was in custody, but then he stopped cooperating. He's left behind a significant amount of evidence, according to officials, for investigators to process. This includes ballistics and credit reports. The investigators are also questioning family members, and both the Secret Service and FBI are working on a behavioral profile. They're working with credit card companies to go through his purchases, trying to trace the firearms he used in the shooting. Meanwhile, White House officials are reportedly having conversations about how to keep the president safe after 3 assassination attempts in 2 years. Allen's detention hearing has been scheduled for Thursday, April 30th. We'll be following this story all afternoon, and in about an hour, Justice Department officials will give us an update on the investigation. For the latest on all the day's news, stay with this Fox station. In Washington, I'm Rich Edson.
This has been a Fox News special report.
And again, that was just a bit of an update for you on the White House Correspondents Dinner shooting suspect. His first court appearance there. You were hearing about the 3 counts of attempting to assassinate the president, also crossing state lines with firearms and discharging a firearm during an act of violence. They do believe that he was acting alone. We're continuing to get in new information about this. Again, he was just at his first court appearance today, but you can stay here on air on Fox 32 Chicago and also online. We're going to continue on with our programming, Chicago Live there. welcome back, everyone. 1:16 right now. Thank you so much for staying with us here. As I mentioned right off the top of our broadcast, we have a lot going on today, everyone, okay? So we gave you the breaking news coming out of Washington, D.C. just moments ago there. We are anticipating a couple of large updates, important updates that come along throughout the next couple of hours here. But let's go over some of the things that are trending on our website right now as we wait for our next guest to join us online. First and foremost, a lot of folks looking to find out what's going on with our weather outside. I mean, again, these views from outside, they're all dark. The clouds have been pretty ominous all day. We've been getting rain showers off and on. In fact, I know my loved ones downstate had to shelter in place at one point in time in a basement already today. So we're tracking thunderstorm risks that are going to be going on throughout the day. Of course, we'll be updating you. We'll get one of our meteorologists up here to give you better information. But just in the last 4 minutes here, we did get new information from meteorologist Caitlin Cody that said they have 67-mile-per-hour wind reported at the Aurora Airport in Sugar Grove. So again, very strong storms that we're anticipating today. I do believe that the severe risk came down just a bit going into today, but that doesn't mean that we won't have high wind and, of course, strong storms that come through our area. So we've had high wind warnings for Cook to DuPage, Lake, Kane, DeKalb, McHenry counties. All of those go into 4 p.m. And again, 67-mile-per-hour wind gusts already being reported at the Aurora Airport. So make sure that you are keeping abreast of what's happening today. And of course, we'll be passing along any new information that we get in, both here online and also on air. We also have a couple of other stories on our website that a lot of people are looking at right now. One about a Chicago Uber driver that says a routine delivery turned into a drug discovery. I believe that we first started reporting this last week, but it is still trending online right now. This veteran rideshare driver that unknowingly transported a package later found to contain suspected drugs prompted a whole police investigation, of course, after she noticed a strong odor coming from the package. Suspicious delivery that was, mid trip. She starts to kind of notice this odor coming from it, and probably thank goodness for her sense of smell, this didn't turn into an investigation of her, but in turn of how she ended up with that, where it came from. She contacted police, and officers recovered the package. No injuries were reported here, but a lot of people wondering exactly how this all went down, and of course the chain of succession when it came to how she was able to get this. It was a North Side incident that happened. Again, routine delivery here. She says she's completed nearly 5,000 rides since 2019 and never had something like this to happen. So it's a first to a lot of things, but this isn't one of the things that she wanted to have happen. So that is also trending on our website right now. Let me give you one more while we're looking at things on our website. We have a North Side crash with injuries that happened this morning that a lot of people are getting information on this afternoon as well. We know that there was I believe there were 2 cars involved in this, but there was a lot of damage, and a lot of people are looking for this article online as well. So just a few things that are populating on our website. Obviously, our big story for the day here locally. Obviously, nationally, everyone's getting updates on the White House Correspondents Dinner suspect, but here locally, of course, we had 2 police officers, Chicago police officers, who were shot over the weekend, and that suspect is also in court today. This is our view inside of the courthouse here. This will be an initial court appearance for this suspect as well. Lots of questions here, everybody, for what happened here. These officers took this man to the hospital, Swedish hospital, to be evaluated, and in the process of being in the hospital, that suspect was able to get a gun and shoot both of those officers. One officer we lost over the weekend, John Bartholomew, and the other officer, who has not been named as of yet, is in critical condition right now at last check. Last time we were updated, in critical condition, but a horrible, horrible situation that took place inside of that hospital. The suspect was able to get out of the hospital, run through the neighborhood. Police who came to that area found a gown as they're looking for the person. I'm sure, if you've been following this all along, you probably saw the pictures of the suspect as he's running naked through the streets with lots of equipment on him from having been evaluated at the hospital, and they were able to find him finally within the neighborhood and get him into custody. But now the questions of his history. Today, just this morning, when charges were announced for this suspect, the list of things that he has been charged and convicted of in the past have really caused greater conversations about when is the third strike you're out if you're on maybe 10 or 12. That there are lots of questions about what happened here, what, if anything, could have prevented it from getting to that moment. And we have all of that information online, what he's been charged with, and there's a list of charges from this morning that we were able to track down this morning. But then there's also a long history of issues that where he crossed with law enforcement and where he was in and out of prison for a very long time. I mean, these issues date back quite some time. Electronic monitoring. He was on electronic monitoring for quite some time. And then you ask the question of, okay, what's going on with the electronic monitoring system? There are some heavy, heavy, heavy hearts and big questions about this particular suspect and this extremely unfortunate situation. I believe that both of these officers were assigned to the 17th district, if I'm correct, here in the city. And so our hearts and prayers are with that district and, of course, their families. Both families of both of these officers. One family that's already lost a loved one, and another family that has been shaken, at the very least, to see their hero now fighting for their life in the hospital. So we know that the suspect in this particular situation is facing a host of charges, including first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, ordered detained today in the hearing, so no pretrial release or anything like that. But lots of questions. I believe that the next court date is now going to be April 30th for the suspect in this case. So we will continue to follow that. A lot of heavy hearts here in the city. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with our police officers and also the families of these two specific police officers, one that we lost and one that is fighting for their life right now. It's about 1:25 though, everyone, and we want to get to our next guest, who is here now with Gas Buddy, Patrick DeHaan, who has joined us many times before. We certainly appreciate you being back, as everyone is asking lots of questions about what's going on with the prices they're seeing and where they're going from here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, so you're kind of looking over the Great Lakes region. Obviously, that includes us. We're maybe most interested in Illinois, but Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, what are you seeing?
Well, we're seeing gas prices going up here to start the week after oil prices jumped late last week, and coupled with the refinery issue at the BP refinery in Northwest Indiana, the region's largest, are pushing up the wholesale price of gasoline. That, coupled with the oil prices that continue to go up as the situation continues between the U.S. and Iran, we're seeing gas prices across much of Chicago reach $4.60 to $4.70 a gallon at many stations throughout Cook County and the suburbs as well. Wisconsin prices now touching $4 a gallon. Northwest Indiana seeing prices jump up to about $4.19 a gallon. So pretty hefty increases here. A lot of this likely will continue as long as the situation continues to persist between the U.S. and Iran. The Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, and while there's been talk of reopening the strait or talk of agreements and negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, none of it has really had much of an impact. And so gas prices continue to rise. Oil prices up again today, And that could be more bad news for where gas prices and diesel prices go in the days ahead.
Yeah. We often look at the stock market to see if there is an immediate adjustment. And a lot of times, whenever there's like a positive word even given from the president, it seems to have an impact, an effect on the stock market. Gas prices, not so quick, though.
Well, it can be certainly very quick. It's just though that stations often are 2 to 4 days behind raising prices, such as what's happening today across Chicagoland. Already late last week on Thursday and Friday, stations were paying much more. So being 2 to 4 days behind the curve on raising prices does mean that they generally are more reluctant to lower prices if and when the coast becomes clear. But we haven't really seen any of that. It's been head fake after head fake, promise after promise. The U.S. and Iran have temporarily agreed to a ceasefire, then negotiate, nothing happens, and oil prices go right back up. So we did see a brief reprieve here a couple of weeks ago when gas prices did decline in many instances, but that reprieve wasn't long lasting because the U.S. Continues its engagement with Iran. And we've seen the president already pulling negotiators back from Pakistan. And so oil prices are continuing to climb. So there's not much relief that station owners can now pass along. All they're doing is passing along whatever the oil markets are doing. And right now that is a heavy increase. And that could continue to push gasoline and diesel prices up here in the days ahead, so long as the strait remains closed.
I want to ask you about a couple of other things here. One, I mentioned Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin. What's going on with Indiana?
Well, Indiana has had a bit of a reprieve because of its gasoline tax holiday. That is, the sales tax on gasoline in Indiana has been paused for another couple weeks. So Indiana prices are a little bit lower. They're not as susceptible. Indiana's prices are probably not going to hit record levels just yet, in part because that gasoline sales tax was paused for a couple of weeks. But if and when that does become re-implemented, Indiana certainly will be sharing in our pain. And keep in mind, as I mentioned, a lot of uncertainty right now as we've seen some refinery issues here develop over the weekend. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on it. But for now, I don't think motorists are going to expect to see much, if any, break at the pump in the days ahead, so long as the strait remains closed and so long as refineries are undergoing maintenance, which will probably start to wrap up here in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And how big of a problem do you expect this to be going into the time period when we switch blends?
Well, we've already made that switch over, so that's kind of behind us now, at least for now. There's not really any issues with the switchover because most of what Chicagoans are filling up with is that summer gasoline. So at least that's behind us, but that still doesn't give us much hope on where we're going to move forward. Much of the reason for the last 2 months of increases has really been less the summer gasoline changeover and those seasonal trends, and it's been more related to the U.S. and Iran.
I have 30 seconds left with you. Any advice for people?
Shop around day and night and try to reduce consumption where you can.
All right. Quick advice. Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate having you here, although we wish it was better news.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Everyone, it's about 1:30 right now. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here, and then we'll be back. I'll let you know where we're going from here. right, welcome back, everyone. It's about 1:33 right now. Let's take you to the arrival of the royals from Great Britain here. So we have King Charles and Queen Camilla just arriving in Washington, D.C. This is a state visit to mark the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence. The British royals are going to be greeted at the White House by President Trump. You can see their plane just kind of making its way on in here. Obviously, there's a lot to this visit. The relations between the U.S. and U.K. have been a bit strained because of the war in Iran, and President Trump has said, that when he wanted help from other nations, that everyone kind of said it's not our fight. But it has seemed like a lot of his ire, if you will, has been for Keir Starmer, not necessarily for King Charles. He says he and King Charles have been friends for many years, since he was Prince Charles, and that they are looking forward to this visit together, although King Charles has said they want to stay above politics, and that this visit is not for that reason, that his government is hoping that his U.S. tour can help ease some tensions, though, again, that have really come between President Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer during their time refusing to assist the U.S. militarily. So one of the big questions, even in the last 48 hours with this particular visit, was whether it would even happen after what took place over the weekend at the White House Correspondents Dinner. So you had President Trump, Vice President Vance, House Speaker, Secretary of War, you name it, from the cabinet, they were there inside of the room for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And there's this big question as to whether we should ever have that many people in the line of succession all in one room, because when trouble came knocking, i.e. when a suspect ran and tried to run into the ballroom where so many reporters from the area who cover the White House, and of course, again, the president and many of his cabinet members were there for what should have been a really fun, bipartisan night of laughs and camaraderie, what turned into a terrifying event for so many people. Then there was the question of, okay, well, yes, the Secret Service, thank goodness, was able to do its job, get the president, vice president, all of the cabinet members, the FBI director. Again, I'm trying to think of all the people who were in the room, was able to get them all out, but just the fact that this person was able to get in the hotel and to get even that close to where all of those sitting cabinet members were, would the security protocol need to be beefed up, changed altogether? Would this visit from the royals need to be postponed to a later date? President Trump has been pretty adamant that he does not want to appear as though anything changes as a result of one person trying to make a statement, however terrifying it may have been for many, that one person doesn't change the outlook for the entire country, doesn't change business going on as usual. That suspect, while we're waiting on the royals to get off of the plane, to deplane, and there will be some ceremonial aspects to that, that suspect from the White House Correspondents' Dinner made his first appearance in court today. We've been seeing some of the pictures from outside of the courtroom, just a lot of press that's gathered there outside of the courtroom. His name is Cole Thomas Allen. He's just 31 years old and facing charges of attempting to assassinate the president. firearms offenses, and so many other things for making this cross-country trip from California all the way to Washington, D.C. Apparently from the manifesto, what's been reported at least from the manifesto, to take out the president and many of his cabinet members that were all in that one room. So another set of charges are for taking firearms across state lines. Apparently he took a train from California to Chicago and then Chicago to D.C. He also faces charges for discharging a firearm during an act of violence. But they do believe that he acted alone. Just multiple federal charges here that this 31-year-old is facing now. They say that he opened fire at the Secret Service checkpoint. Many of us have seen the video since then, and in fact, we're going to be speaking with one of our colleagues a little bit later on in the show who was in the room. Who will remember that moment for life, of course, of not knowing what exactly was happening, how, is your life in danger? You see people running, federal agents running with guns, just chaos, really. I have spoken to a few of my friends that were in the room, terrified. I saw pictures over the weekend from a former colleague of mine from earlier in my career who was in the room of sheltering on the floor, and you just see shock and horror in people's eyes, not knowing how much of a threat this situation was, but dressing up, getting ready for a big event, that you've anticipated for quite some time, getting in there, you're greeting all of your friends, your associates, people, maybe some that you're meeting for the first time, so many politicians that were in the room as well, and then all of a sudden people heard a bang. And then more bangs. And then you just see Secret Service running, guns everywhere, them escorting all of the leaders, that have security detail out of the room. Just horrible moments there. And as a result of this one man, Cole Thomas Allen, 31 years old, apparently right before he did what he is now charged with doing, allegedly did what he is now charged with doing, he sent messages to his family members. His family members, obviously they couldn't prevent this because by the time they were alerted, this was already in progress, but allegedly he sent messages to his family members who then reached out to police. So at least the police officers had a starting point for where they would look into much of this, but couldn't prevent the terror that so many people experienced on that one night. So yes, his charges: attempting to assassinate the president, that carries a potential life sentence; transporting a firearm across state lines, that's punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine; discharging of a firearm during a crime of violence, that carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years. He is innocent until proven guilty. However, we've seen the video, and it is horrifying. A search of state and federal court databases showed no indication that he had any previous charges for crimes, that he legally acquired the firearm. Even it is reported that within the last couple of years, he was named as Teacher of the Month at a school. So what went on in his head? What changed? How he ended up in this place on a floor in handcuffs after what we saw on video? There will be lots of questions asked about it. Again, he is facing several charges right now. We don't have all the answers at this point in time, but we are getting more and more information. And in fact, in our 2 o'clock hour, we are anticipating, as you see here, another major breaking update, and this should be coming from the DOJ, also the FBI Director, Kash Patel. So it'll be Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro that are all expected to give an update here again after this 31-year-old had his first court appearance today. They will be speaking. We will go to it live just as soon as they step in front of that mic. A major story that we are following here at home. And of course, the president, the Trump administration, and the British royals have decided it will not impact the trip for today. They have made it here to the, will be safe in their visit here to the United States. They will be going to several different events while they're here, waiting on them to deplane, but you can see the first responders are military, our uniformed military, and several others, dignitaries who are there waiting on both King Charles and Queen Camilla to come off of the plane. They'll be greeted. There will be a short ceremony here. And again, they'll be on a tour. They have several different events that are planned here, and some really important conversations, you would say, that need to be had to kind of smooth things out between the U.S. and the U.K. during a time when the U.S. and Israel and Iran are currently in the midst of war, and a war that doesn't have a finite ending as of right now. So we'll see how the conversations go. Again, President Trump has said he and King Charles have been friends for many years. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, different story, and a much different language used for him. But as it pertains to King Charles, who will be coming out on the opposite side, these are some of their administration officials, the assistants of the royals who are coming off of this side of the plane and loading up into one of the Sprinter jets that's there. And we anticipate that the royals will be coming off just as soon as maybe all of their assistants come off on this side, that it should be momentary here before King Charles and Queen Camilla come out of the other side of the plane from a different set of stairs. To so many people who are waiting on them for this arrival and the beginning of their tour here in the United States. So we'll continue to watch this. We're going to take a quick break, everyone, and maybe we can even keep this picture up. I'm trying to wait and see if maybe I just feel like the minute we go to break, they're probably going to exit, but let's take a 2-minute break, see if that gives them enough time. If not, I'm sure they will still be in the vicinity where we'll have a picture, and we'll continue on from there. right, welcome back, everyone. It's 1:48 right now. We didn't miss much. We thought that maybe if we went to break, I was scared we were going to miss that moment when the Royals came off of the plane. But actually, the only thing we missed in the break was them rolling out the red carpet, very literally, as you can see right there, for the Royals here. It does look like we have come upon the moment when they should be deplaning. Have to be very proper, giving them a knock to make sure they're ready. All right. Of course, the United Kingdom's King Charles and Queen Camilla are here to celebrate the country's 250th birthday. They have a full itinerary stateside, celebrating the historic connections. Also, the relationship between the United Kingdom and United States. And here they are. King Charles III and Queen Camilla. The first time a British monarch has made a state visit in nearly 20 years. This will be a 4-day state visit. The King's first U.S. trip since his 2022 coronation. At that time, he was doing some trips outside of the nation's capital, including a ceremonial stop at the memorial dedicated to 9/11 terrorist attacks in New York City. So, formal state dinner at the White House and an address to a joint session of Congress are on the itinerary as he is greeting those who are there waiting for him to deplane along with Queen Camilla. So we'll continue our coverage of their itinerary, their trip. Obviously, it'll be a big moment when they get over to the White House. But let's continue our conversations here on Chicago Live as well. Our next guest is here waiting for us, and that is Brian Siegel with Global Arts, Culture, and Heritage. He is the executive at Bank of America that is in charge of all of those things. And this evening, they're going to be announcing that the Old Guitarist by Pablo Picasso, one of the Art Institute of Chicago's most iconic works, is gonna undergo some conservation. Let's go ahead and bring Brian in. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us about the Art Conservation Project.
So the Art Conservation Project is a program that we started back in 2010. Since that time, we've provided grants to nearly 300 museums in 40 countries all over the world. We've impacted almost 15,000 works of art. And really, it's focused on preserving and restoring works of art so that they can be enjoyed not only today, but by future generations.
And how do you go about selecting them?
Well, we have an open process where we accept applications and proposals from museums all over the world. This past year, we had our largest number ever. We had over 180 applications. And then we go through a pretty rigorous screening process. We have a team of expert conservators at museums all over the country. They review the proposals, and we kind of narrow down to anywhere from 16 to 20 projects every year.
18 this year. I mean, how in the world do you get to that number, and what does each grantee get exactly?
So it really depends on the needs of the project. So we look at each project individually. Sometimes it's just a cleaning, maybe a reframing. Other times it's a much more invasive procedure where, they're really having to restore paint chips. But we also do sculptures. We've done manuscripts, works on paper. So it really depends on what the needs of the different project are. In some cases, it's actually paying for equipment that a museum might need. The world of conservation has evolved well beyond, Q-tips and sponges, and now includes infrared technology, X-ray scanning, material science, evaluation of different paint materials. So it's really about whatever the project needs.
What are the needs for the old guitarist?
Well, I think you'd probably have to talk to the experts at the Art Institute on that one. They're really the experts. We let them do what they need to do. I mean, I think it's if I recall, it's about cleaning. It's about some paint restoration, but they could certainly give you a lot more about what the needs of that individual project are.
Well, a lot of people are thinking, how and why does Bank of America end up doing conservation work for art projects? So where do the two, how do the two coexist, and where did they meet? How did this happen?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We get that question very often. I think for us, it's about a broader program of support for the arts. We've been steadfast supporters of the arts for really since 2008, and even, in some cases long before then. Our program really looks at how we can best support the needs of nonprofit arts and culture institutions. And so in some cases, that's providing a grant for conservation. In other cases, it's supporting an exhibition of artwork that a particular museum might be hosting. And we've done that here in Chicago, I think, more than 10 times over the course of many years. In other cases, we're loaning out artwork from our collection to museums that maybe can't afford to have their own exhibition. And then we also have our Museums on Us program, which provides free access to any Bank of America customer card holder to over 250 museums the first weekend of every month. So for us, support for the arts is part of our broader efforts around philanthropy. It's about our belief in both profits and purpose, and responsible growth, and helping our communities really be great places to live, work, and play.
How do you feel that art factors into a community being a great place to live, work, and play?
Well, I think when you think about the arts institutions, I mean, they are, really a major part of the fabric of a particular community. But not only that, they're really economic drivers. I mean, when you think about if somebody is coming in to take advantage of a free Museums on Us weekend, they're either riding the train, they're parking, they're buying food, they're buying merchandise at the gift shop, they're probably going shopping somewhere in town. So, not only are the arts just important from a cultural standpoint, but they do drive the economy forward. And I think especially these big major institutions, tourism, local visitorship, all those things just contribute to a vibrant economy.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think it says about nonprofit art institutions that they need so much help?
Well, I mean, I think, I think it's just like everything else. If you think about any other nonprofit, they require funding to complete their mission. In some cases, that's through membership sales. In some cases, that's through ticket sales. In other cases, it's corporate sponsorship. Whether it's, and that's across the board. That's really any entertainment, whether it's, the Chicago Cubs or the Bears or anybody. I mean, they all do require additional support from the corporate community.
Well, thank you for what you all are doing. I'm sure they are so appreciative. And thank you for making time for us here on Chicago Live. We appreciate it as well.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. Everyone,
Bye-bye.
it's about 1:58. I did tell you we're anticipating another round of breaking news. The setup is right there for the DOJ, the acting attorney general, the FBI director, and the U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro. They should be speaking momentarily. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick 2-minute break here. If they are speaking when we come back, we'll go right to them live. If not, we'll proceed on with our programming here. So give us 2 minutes and then we'll kind of see where we're going from here. Okay, welcome back, everyone. 2 o'clock right now. Let's talk a little bit about what we are anticipating in this hour. We're going to talk about the squeeze for so many of our farmers in the state when it comes to costs associated with the war in Iran, whether that's just gas prices, diesel fuel, whether it's for fertilizer, so many different things that are impacting them right now. We're going to get an update on what things have been like over the last several weeks and what they're anticipating going forward, any changes that they are making right now, anticipating things as well. We'll talk about the changes for Water Tower Place. I mean, it is a historic landmark right on along the Mag Mile. So many things as of late. We've been getting great news about things coming back to the Mag Mile, and we love to see it, right? But we're going to hear more about the plans, the new plans for Water Tower Place, just announced today, and so we look forward to that update as well. I will let you know what's happening on our website, what a lot of people are looking forward to, the weather. A lot of people looking for articles on the weather today because it's been pretty frightful outside. But of course, from over the weekend, the big conversation has to do nationally. Obviously, locally, we have a big story as well, but nationally has to do with the White House Correspondents Dinner and this horrible turn of events on a night that was supposed to be about camaraderie and the best in the business from news coming together with politicians across lines, bipartisan effort that just went horribly wrong. And our friend of the station, Gianno Caldwell, is on the line with me right now. Gianno, I was looking at some of those videos and, I'm just kind of scanning the room, looking at so many of the scared faces. And then I said, wait, oh my gosh, is that Gianno? Obviously you've been with us many times before, so I knew your face and I saw you with your camera kind of looking. What was going through your mind? I mean, what did you hear and what was going on around you?
To first set the stage, thank you for having me. I appreciate you, Anita, and especially what you do for the city of Chicago. Thank you so much. To give people a backdrop, I work for the national network Fox News Channel, and I was scheduled to do 3 hours of programming from 9 to 12 for one of our shows, along with one of my colleagues, Jimmy Fallon, who's a comedian on the network, and we were going to do a back and forth. Obviously, the White House Correspondents Dinner is supposed to be funny and making fun of each other, but unifying at the same time. So I was near the red carpet. I was talking to a Secret Service agent. We were going live in 30 minutes when we heard a boom. Now, at that particular point, didn't know where that was coming from. Didn't know if a tray failed or something else. But then boom, 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 boom. And you can see the gun smoke. It was about 30 feet or so away. And that's when the Secret Service agent told me, because there wasn't many other folks around, he said, "Get on the ground." So I was like, okay, get on the ground. I stumbled back. At that point, when the shots rang out, I had no idea if I was shot. I'm checking myself. I'm looking around to see if potentially anybody else is here, because there was a couple camera techs that was on our team that was around. And certainly, thank God, no one was hit. But I pulled out my camera and I began to record immediately. And people can check out those videos on my Instagram at Gianno Caldwell. Fox has shared those as well. One of the videos ranked over 7 million views at this point, but millions of views around these videos and the aftermath of it, because I began to record literally within a minute of the shots being fired, rather. So this was a very, very, very scary situation, I think, for many of the folks that was in the building, especially not knowing, and for folks to kind of have an understanding of between the dinner and where I was. If you go into the hotel lobby, one floor lower was the red carpet. And then for the actual dining hall, that was another floor lower. And this individual tried to run through the mags. He hit a Secret Service agent, and then they began to fire at him. But at that point of hearing the repeat fire and knowing what has happened with the multiple assassination attempts of President Trump, I had no idea if maybe something happened in the ballroom and these guys are trying to escape, or what that was. So you can imagine those 30 minutes as we're collecting information about what's going on were quite terrifying, not just for me, but many people around us.
Absolutely. And, we're waiting on this press conference, the DOJ briefing on what happened that night. We know that the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, the FBI director, Kash Patel, and the U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro, are expected to speak any moment now. If I have to pause our conversation, we're going to go to that live just as soon as it begins. But what are your thoughts on security from that night in the aftermath?
Well, I didn't go down to the dinner, and that's where the mags were, right before the dinner. I stayed at the hotel, and I did think when I got there, because I got there on Saturday morning, I said, wow, there's no security kind of scanning bags and stuff like that. It's a hotel, and I know there's going to be a separation, but considering the attempts on President Trump's life and other folks, it may have made some sense. I was kind of surprised by that. But at the same time, I've hosted the red carpet at the White House Correspondents Dinner in Trump's first term, his first year for Extra TV. And I can tell you the security was reasonably about the same, even though he wasn't there. So that was a bit surprising to me. But I certainly didn't expect the outcome that we experienced that night.
Yeah, and there's been so much made. You mentioned, the other attempts on his life. Those were in outdoor venues.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Much
more exposed.
Yeah. I mean, so now begins the question of what all needs to be beefed up, regardless of whether it's outdoors or indoors, because it did seem like, everyone that I've talked to who was there, they're like, well, it was kind of the same setup as the same setup as the same setup as the same setup from many years past. But we are dealing with now someone who has had multiple attempts on their life. Maybe the setup just has to change.
No, 100%. I absolutely agree with you on that point. The setup must change. And you also keep in mind, Susie Wiles has said that President Trump is going to be on the campaign trail like he's running for president again for the midterm elections. So with that consideration, there'll probably be a lot more outside events that they're going to have. What will that security look like? Will he feel comfortable? And it seems like he would feel comfortable going out into those environments still, especially considering the fact that he wanted to let the show go on, in his words, which is something I couldn't imagine going on, because there were some people kind of stuck in that ballroom. They couldn't get out. So that was and for people to set the stage for folks, we're talking about the entire, for the most part, entire United States media apparatus, from executives, reporters, correspondents, social media folks, whatever the case may be. If they work for a news organization, especially of a major influence nationally or even local folks, this is a lot of folks who report the news on a daily basis. So they're not expecting these kind of situations. It's not like we're in the Middle East or somewhere else where you kind of expect that as a journalist, you're going into these battle zones.
Yeah.
So this is an extreme situation, one in which needs certainly correcting from a security standpoint.
Yeah, and then, as you're starting to see the security agents run past with these huge guns, what then is happening in your mind? I mean, because you mentioned everyone in there is a journalist or a politician, so immediately the journalistic, the people were just terrified, but then turned into journalists documenting everything.
No, exactly right. And that's what happened to me. I was shook and I fell back, but I never hit the ground. And I just pulled my phone out and then immediately began to record, which is where you can find those 6 videos, again, at Gianno Caldwell on Instagram, for those who want to check them out. And this is something I think, folks didn't expect, but they were prepared to cover. As journalists, this is what we must do, just like you would do in any situation, Anita. You got to tell the world what really happened there. You want to show the real story. And I happen to be the only journalist that was nearby when it happened. And I was very, very close, again, 30 or so feet near where the shooting took place. And certainly, folks may know this. I'm from Chicago, born and raised on the South Side. I don't live there anymore, but I had a family tragedy, June 24th, 2022, when my innocent baby brother Christian was murdered. And, I even came out and spoke with you guys first about it, even though I work for the national channel, because I knew people would have more information in the local area than maybe the national area. And, having had that experience, having lived in multiple neighborhoods on the South Side and seeing violence head on, I've never seen or experienced something to that degree. So that was a real shocker, because all the experience I've had not prepared me for that moment at one of the most prestigious dinners in the entire world.
Yeah, and a lot of people, made conversation of the fact that, and in a lot of places where people experience violence, like what you just mentioned, they're not afforded the opportunity to have Secret Service agents and federal agents running immediately to stop whatever has started. I mean, we're even looking at some pictures here now that the suspect has had his first court appearance. We're seeing some of the evidence that was presented. These are huge guns he ran in with, and of course, you have the best of the best, the top of the line security that immediately went to take him down.
No, 100%. And this was a guy who came to the hotel the day before, apparently came from LA on a train to Chicago, and then from Chicago to DC. This was an individual who had been preparing for this moment for quite a long time. And I imagine once we hear from Janine Pirro, who's going to be prosecuting this crime, she's going to lay out these details of not only the manifesto, which is now out there, but certainly what motivated him in a greater way to even plan such an event like this. Because we're not talking about somebody who was just somebody mentally unstable. We're talking about somebody who apparently had a number of degrees, who was highly educated, who was a data scientist, who was a teacher at one time. This is a credible human being. This is a credentialed individual. So what would cause you, a person who's credentialed, who has all the education, who has the ability to generate revenue, money for yourself, support yourself, what would cause you to do something like this? And I think that's going to be a part of the conversation when we hear from our law enforcement officials.
What do you make of the moving forward debate over whether we can ever have that many sitting officials in the same room again?
I think we can. I think if there were to be a White House ballroom, that would be the case. But to be honest with you, and to just say this as politely as possible, maybe after Trump is out of office, some of this would stop. I don't know. Maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. But knowing what we know now, we cannot live like business as usual, considering so many lives were under threat by this gunman. And I'm very surprised that he actually lived through it, because once you shoot a Secret Service agent, my thought process is they're going to shoot to kill you. So somehow he lived through it. He didn't get hit by any of the bullets. And now he'll have his day in court, and perhaps he'll explain exactly why he made the decisions that he did.
Yeah, and apparently he's not talking as of right now. But yeah, hopefully we get some more information, because it's just, it is a conundrum to think, as you said, that somebody who was like Teacher of the Year at one point in time is now accused of such heinous crimes, and again, captured on video in many instances like yours, and pictures that have now been seen all around the world. There's also now a question of whether the White House Correspondents Dinner should just come back around in 30 days. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess it depends on where they're going to have it, because you cannot, I would say, do it at the Hilton, and I'm imagining that there's going to be a decline in the attendance. So unless they're going to have something special at the White House, I mean, where exactly you're going to put it is going to be another question. There will be concerns about security, and I'm imagining there's going to be, moving forward, even on the campaign trail, journalists who are going to have concerns about security. We can talk about what happened in Butler when President Trump was shot the first time. There were journalists there, not as many as obviously the White House, the White House Correspondents Dinner, and any of these other events where these shootings have taken place, or these attempts on President Trump's life has taken place. This is a concentrated group of people who are running the show largely across the country. Some may even say the world when it comes to media. And I'm imagining some of those folks now having had the personal experience, now having to duck under tables and see Secret Service run across tables to try to protect the president. Perhaps some of those folks may choose not to go. But I would like to leave on this
note. So sorry to interrupt you, but this press conference is now beginning. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so sorry that it's under these circumstances. But again, everyone, the press conference now with the DOJ briefing, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro are speaking now. Let's listen in.
This was not an accident. It was the result, as we know now, of preparation. But the men and women who protected us that night were trained, professional, and had an enduring commitment to the rule of law. Today, the Department of Justice filed 3 federal charges in United States District Court against Cole Thomas Allen. The first count is attempted assassination of the President of the United States. This count is punishable by up to life in prison. The second count is interstate transportation of a firearm to commit a felony. Is punishable by up to life in prison. The second count is interstate transportation of a firearm to commit a felony. This is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And the third count is discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence, which is punishable by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 10 years, a maximum of life, and the 10 years is consecutive to any other sentence imposed. Just to go through very quickly the timeline, which many of you in this room already know, the defendant, Allen, made a hotel reservation at the Washington Hilton for April 24th through April 26th. On April 21st of this year, he traveled by train from Los Angeles to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Washington, D.C. On April 24th, he arrived in Washington, D.C. at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon and checked into the Washington Hilton. Approximately at 8:40 on the night of April 25th, Allen approached a security checkpoint on the terrace level of the hotel, which is, again, a floor above where the dinner was taking place. He ran through the magnetometer holding a long gun. As he did so, U.S. Secret Service personnel assigned to the checkpoint heard a loud gunshot. One Secret Service officer was shot in the chest, but was wearing a ballistic vest that worked. This heroic officer who was hit fired 5 times at Allen, who was not shot but fell to the ground and was promptly arrested. I want to thank everybody who worked tirelessly on Saturday, Sunday, and continuing today. This includes members of the FBI, and Director Patel is going to address that in a minute. It includes members of the Metropolitan Police Department who were immediately on the scene, the chief, the mayor, to make sure that law enforcement was available to do their jobs and had all the tools they needed to do so. And lastly, the United States Attorney's Office here in D.C., our U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro and her team. A prosecutor stayed up all night long, didn't sleep all day yesterday, making sure that we got what we needed from all over the country. It included search warrants in California, search warrants here in D.C., multiple interviews that have been conducted already of witnesses and of family members of the charged individual, and continue to work hard today. This investigation is ongoing. It's not complete. A lot of the information that the media is hearing through leaks or sources, some of it is true, some of it is not true, and at the right time you will hear information from us as appropriate. I'd like to ask our U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro to say a few words, and then followed by Director Patel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Cole Allen's journey of accountability in the criminal justice system starts today. Todd Blanche just indicated to you the charges. Those charges are only 3 charges that are in the complaint that has been presented in federal district court about an hour ago. There will be additional charges as this investigation continues to unfold. But make no mistake, this was an attempted assassination of the President of the United States, with the defendant making clear what his intent was. And that intent was to bring down as many of the high-ranking cabinet officials as he could. This is the kind of situation that we cannot tolerate. And as the Attorney General has just indicated, it could have been so much worse, but for the reality that we had the Secret Service as well as the Metropolitan Police Department and the FBI. Now, the facts make it very clear what this intent was. You may recall that it was on March 2nd that the president indicated that he would be attending this public event at the Hilton. And on April 6th, that's when Cole Allen first made a hotel reservation at the Washington Hilton for 3 nights, the 24th, the 25th, and the 26th. It was on April 21st that he traveled all the way from the West Coast, from his home near L.A. He gets to Chicago on April 23rd, and has been indicated he arrives in D.C. on the 24th, and he checks into the hotel at about 3 p.m. He stays overnight. He is very much aware that the president and the first lady entered the ballroom at 8 p.m. And it was at 8:40 that he made a decision to rush the ballroom. And thank goodness, law enforcement, the Secret Service, was able to prevent him from getting into that ballroom. He was not injured other than some kind of scrape on his knee. Now, as indicated, these are the weapons that the defendant had on his person. You can see that's a 12-gauge pump-action Mossberg shotgun. It's a .38 semi-automatic. He had at least 3 knives and all kinds of paraphernalia. So any suggestion that he wasn't there to do harm is absurd. We will prove when he purchased these guns. They were purchased in California. Why is that relevant? It is relevant because he crossed interstate lines with those firearms, and those are the firearms that he used on the night of the 25th, or attempted to use at the very least. Now, the manifesto also makes clear about his expected rules of engagement. You know, you can look at it and read it, and it may seem kind of la, but at the end, make no mistake, he says, I am targeting the administration officials. They are my targets, and I'm prioritizing from the top down, the highest ranking from the lowest. And I will not hesitate to get involved in any kind of encounter with anyone who blocks me from the president. Now, finally, let me say one thing. Within days of the president nominating me to be the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, I was at the scene of a double homicide where one Elias Rodriguez crossed state lines from Chicago with a firearm to commit a felony in the district. He's now indicted for the murder of two individuals, Laron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, here in Washington. Not long after that, another individual, Ramanullah Lockenwall, crossed state lines, again with a firearm, with intent to commit a felony here in Washington. He traveled from the state of Washington. He is now indicted with the murder of Sarah Beckstrom, a National Guardsman, and the attempted murder of National Guard Andrew Wolf. Today, we have Cole Allen, another individual, charged with crossing state lines coming from California with a firearm with the intent to commit a felony here in the district. Let this be a message to anyone who thinks that Washington, D.C. is the place to act out political violence. And if you are willing to do so with a firearm and cross state lines, we will find you, we will track your steps from the inception of your plan, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Washington, D.C. is not the place to travel to commit acts of violence. The Constitution and the laws of the United States permit us to register our views through our voices and our votes. What they don't permit is making your views known through violence, especially violence directed at the President of the United States. This is anti-democratic at its core.
Thank you, Judge. Excuse me. Thank you, General. This one hits a little differently. We were all there. Many of you were there. Many of you watching were there as well. The president was there. The vice president was there. The cabinet was there. And what you saw described by the general and the U.S. attorney is absolutely true. The president spoke on late Saturday evening with the message of unity and a backing of law enforcement, and we have followed through on that message of unity and the effectuation of law enforcement across this country. This FBI is grateful to the United States Secret Service, the Department of Homeland Security, and our interagency partners, including the Metropolitan Police Department, for swiftly jumping into action. All of us on there put us in a unique position, but all of us also acted uniquely. The Washington field office jumped into action immediately, sending a mobile command center to the scene, along with our evidence response technicians who showed up in speedy fashion to make sure we could collect the evidence that the prosecutors and the department needed to make this announcement today. Also on scene, you were told about the brave heroics of the United States Secret Service and other members of law enforcement, and that should be celebrated by every single American. They did exactly what they were trained to do. They stopped a massive attack from becoming even worse. They stood in the way, they safeguarded America, and they should be nothing but applauded for their bravery and their dedication to their mission and their selfless sacrifice to this country. The FBI, along with standing up mobile command units, evidence tech response team, and Washington SWAT on scene, also established our NC3, our National Crisis Coordination Center, almost immediately. And almost immediately in parallel, we stood up our command center at the Washington field office under ADIC Darren Cox's leadership. Throughout the evening, we immediately began working with our Department of Justice partners to find the evidence necessary to effectuate the legal process necessary and enter into the suspect's room at the Washington Hilton successfully and lawfully and obtain the relevant evidence for exploitation. That was on scene. Back at the headquarters division and the Washington field office, we were coordinating a national scale investigation that literally spanned from coast to coast. As you heard, FBI agents, along with the interagency, were immediately dispatched to the suspect's home in California, where we conducted interviews that provided critical information about this horrific attack. We also dispatched investigators and agents to New London, Connecticut, where we conducted further interviews that provided necessary information that you will find in this criminal complaint, as the United States Attorney has just laid out. While officers were working diligently through the night to conduct those interviews, we were also conducting interviews of witnesses on scene. Those interviews are ongoing. As you know, there was almost 2,000 people there. We were sifting through and prioritizing who to talk to and we will get to each and every one of you with any bit of relevant information. Again, we ask everybody who has any relevant information, like I did on Saturday night with the president, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Any piece of information is information we want to have and must receive. On top of the on-scene response by this FBI, the headquarters response, and the Washington field office response, the FBI flipped on its enterprise-wide response to this critical incident. What does that mean? We dispatched fixed-wing assets across the country so that we could immediately transport evidence that was acquired in California and Connecticut and sent it to our laboratories in Quantico for analysis. We collected the shell casings on scene, including the firearms and the weapons that the judge talked about. Those were also sent to our Quantico laboratories for immediate analysis. America should be proud that this FBI acted with the urgency that was needed for the moment that we had to answer. The president rightly said that we will act in a unified fashion, and it's because of President Trump's leadership and backing of the blue, every single person in law enforcement that I stood with into the late evening hours on Saturday, early evening hours on Sunday, and all day yesterday and today are thrilled to wear the badge and defend this country. Each and every one of them deserves our thanks, and I encourage everyone listening to go out there and shake the hand of a federal agent or police officer and say thank you for doing their job. Thank you for training endlessly to make sure they meet the mission requirements. And for me, as the director of the FBI, I want to thank our headquarters components for working diligently with our prosecutors and make sure that the American public knows it's not just federal agents that do this work. It's our intelligence analysts, our support staff, our laboratories, our fixed-wing assets, our critical incident response groups, our hostage rescue teams. Agents sprung into action, got out of bed, and haven't slept since. These prosecutors haven't slept since, and I promise you they're not going to be sleeping. They are going to give you every piece of evidence. As the journal said, we will make public, when appropriate, to protect the integrity of this investigation, to make sure that due process is served, and we will meet the highest standards of the Constitution, as we always do. And that is when we will continue to disclose information. I know the public has a yearning for information, but just remind yourself of how much information you have already received, how transparent this administration has been. In less than 48 hours, you know almost every single thing we know. And what we have not told you yet, we will tell you in short order. So once again, from me, as director of the FBI, I want to thank the interagency. I want to thank the United States Secret Service and their director, Mark Wayne Mullen, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General of the United States, Attorney Pirro, and Ada Cox for springing into action on a night that should have been celebrating free speech. But we will be doing it again shortly, as the president said, and we look forward to seeing you all there.
Pierre.
2 questions, please. Beyond the evidence and what the judge described as the manifesto, what other evidence can you point to that tells us that the president was the primary target of the suspect?
So we're a day and a half into the investigation. As we talked about earlier, we were able to get multiple devices from various locations, the hotel room and also his where he lived in California. We have started that process. There's nothing more that would be appropriate to share at this time until we have thoroughly gone through it, which we're doing, and we'll share that information as appropriate in the future. Second question, go ahead.
Beyond the assassination attempts against President Trump, you had someone try to burn down the mansion where the governor lives in Pennsylvania. You had those state lawmakers attacked in Minnesota. You've had 2 Israeli embassy staff members murdered in the city here. You had the Charlie Kirk assassination. You had the National Guardsman killed in the city. Can you, each of you, describe the current threat environment and what DOJ's stance is about it?
Well, you just described the current threat environment pretty accurately, which is that the political violence and rhetoric has got to stop. And that's something President Trump said right after the incident on Saturday night. It's something that Carolyn Leavitt talked about a couple hours ago. It is something that is, when you have a president who and many people in this room, if we're going to be honest about it, have done it as well. They're just as guilty as a lot of people on X. When you have reporters, when you have media just being overly critical and calling the president horrible names for no reason and without evidence, without proof, it shouldn't surprise us that this type of rhetoric takes place. If you look at what it appears that this defendant had in his past, we're talking about somebody who is college educated, who has a job, who is otherwise living his life. And we'll find out more about him, as I expect, in the coming days and weeks. But he chose to do what he did. And so our threat environment is, we are ready. I mean, I'm not going to go through what Director Patel just talked about with the way we responded. But this was something that we will always be prepared for. And it's sad that it has to happen, but it's not a new thing, unfortunately. Okay.
Have you been able to determine whether the gunman fired shots? If so, how many shots he fired, and who exactly, whose bullet hit the agent?
We want to get that right. So we're still looking at that. It appears, and I don't want to overstate, because we are still looking at this, that there were five shots that law enforcement fired. We have all the evidence is being examined very carefully and expeditiously, and we'll know more soon. We do believe that, as the complaint lays out, that the suspect, that the defendant fired it out of his shotgun, and we know that happened. But as far as getting into exacting ballistics, I'm not going to do that today because it's still being looked at and finalized.
Thank you for taking my question. You personally have called for a construction of this ballroom at the White House. The president has called for this as well. Today, the National Trust president put out a statement, says that they're grateful that everybody's okay. But, and I quote, "We are not planning to voluntarily dismiss our lawsuit, which endangers no one, and which respectfully ask the administration to follow the law. Ballroom construction is continuing unabated until June 5th at the earliest because the injunction is on hold." Where does the Justice Department go from here? And then I have a follow-up on that.
Well, we filed a motion today asking the court to do what the plaintiffs refused to do. We absolutely believe that there is no better example of why this ballroom is necessary, aside from all the very positive things the ballroom will bring to this country and to Washington, D.C., than what happened on Saturday night. You guys, many of you all were there. That's one of the only places in D.C. that you can hold an event like that due to its size and the structure of what we need. So we're basically stuck at this point in the city with having an event like that at a hotel, so underneath a ton of hotel rooms. And so the fact that we, aside from the fact that the ballroom is spectacular, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to make this country look great every time it's used, it's also a meaningful safety issue. And so I very much wish that the plaintiffs and their counsel would take a different view, but if they don't, we are going to continue to fight in court like we have been, and hopefully the judges at the D.C. Circuit Court will do the right thing.
Are you aware of...
Not you, the red.
Thank you. Are you investigating connections that Cole Allen allegedly had to left-wing groups? I think one is called the Wide Awakes, reportedly.
Yes. Of course we're investigating that. Now you.
Are you aware of his video game development past, including a potential shooter-style RPG game?
I've seen the news reports that talk about that. I think that the positive and negatives of this type of case is that there's a lot of people investigating this man right now, including the FBI. But the only investigations that truly matter in the court of law are the ones that Director Patel and his men and women are doing. So we'll wait for them to do that and get an answer.
Just really quick, do you know anything about his alleged Christian faith past? Because he said something about it in the manifesto.
I have read reports in the news, and I've read reports that say various things regarding his views of Christianity, his views in the past of Christianity, and I'm certainly not going to speak to news reports. I will wait, as I hope all of you would, for the investigation to continue until we actually have answers. Yeah.
Just a little technical question. You mentioned that you guys, so far, you think that Allen fired at least one shot. That doesn't say that in the affidavit yet, so I'm just curious if you can explain the discharging of weapon charge at this point.
Well, he's charged with violating 924C, discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. So by definition, that charge means that it was discharged. I can tell you from what I know, with the understanding that we're a day and a half in, that this is the gun that he discharged. And as those of us that have ever shot one of these know, what happens when you shoot that is the casing stays inside the firearm, and then if you reload it, it pops it out. My understanding is that it was inside the firearm, but hadn't been ejected, which means that it hadn't been pulled back again. But again, I want folks to understand I'm the acting attorney general. I'm not on the ground doing the investigation, so I'm telling you what I've been told, and we'll if that information changes, I'm sure that we'll let you know. Yeah.
Just want to ask you about this letter that you posted yesterday that's sent from Brett Shumate to the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. It says that the Washington Hilton is, quote, demonstrably unsafe for the President of the United States. It said that with the ballroom, that Trump will no longer need to venture beyond the safety of the White House perimeter. Just engaging with those lines, was there an assessment in advance of the dinner that the Hilton was demonstrably unsafe? And if so, why was President Trump allowed to attend it? And then separately, just the idea that by building the ballroom that President Trump wouldn't need to go outside of the confines of the White House. I mean, is that something that the American people, should find acceptable, that the president would have to be, for major events, confined to the White House? It seems like kind of a castle situation.
That is obviously not what he means by that. And the fact that question comes with respect to President Trump is laughable in the extreme. I mean, laughable in the extreme. You have a president who willingly speaks with you guys multiple times a day, I would say 7 days a week. He is active all over the country. I think with that, keeping it to the four corners of that statement, when he says demonstrably, it's demonstrated by what happened on Saturday night. So that doesn't mean that the Secret Service would ever let the president go into an unsafe environment. I know that the director of the Secret Service will be focused on making sure that we always keep him safe. And by the way, as we said before, and as anybody that was in that room knows, we were safe. We were safe. We heard a lot of loud noises that at the time many of us thought could be guns going off. It was mostly plates falling because of the staff, understandably, were running. So my reaction to that is I'll leave anything with respect to security up to the great men and women of the Secret Service. But when we talk about having an environment like the ballroom, it's an environment like what you saw last night. So an environment where you have a unique blend of cabinet members, leadership of this country, leadership of Congress, reporters and members of the public coming together for an event like that. That's different than other public-facing situations, which I have no doubt President Trump will continue to do as he said he would on Saturday night. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there, for FBI Director Patel, is there any other credible threats at this time related to events in the city, including King Charles? And then separately, the manifesto, I don't really want to give too much weight to this, did mention your name in it as someone that they maybe were not targeting. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that? And then also the political motivations there.
As to the latter, no. As to the former, the FBI and the interagency is constantly evaluating intelligence provided to us by interagency collection methods. Our partners in the federal and state and local levels, we are constantly relaying that information to the White House, to the Attorney General, to the United States Attorney, specifically here in D.C. And we will always assess each piece of intelligence and base it on the credibility that it was received and give it the due weight that it has. But as the U.S. Attorney has stated, and as President Trump's task force for Washington, D.C. has shown, we have reduced crime in this city by historic levels, and we will continue to do so. We will continue to safeguard the men and women that call Washington, D.C. their home.
Okay, we have been listening in there to the DOJ briefing on the White House Correspondents Dinner in Washington over the weekend, a shooting that took place there. The Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro that were all there speaking from their various standpoints about what happens now, the investigations that are taking place even as we speak into this suspect, Cole Allen, 31 years old, that they say booked a reservation at the Washington Hilton from April 24th to the 26th, came via train starting on the 21st of April from Los Angeles to Chicago and then on to Washington, D.C., that then rushed the security checkpoint on Saturday, a floor above the Washington White House Correspondents' Dinner, and had a long gun, also had a semi-automatic weapon, 3 knives, and the weapons were purchased in California. That factors in to the charges that are now presented against him. One Secret Service agent was shot but is okay, and that Secret Service agent was able to fire 5 times. But the suspect here, Allen, Thomas Cole Thomas Allen is not injured other than a scrape on his knee, apparently. They talked about the search warrants that were executed over the weekend, the interviews done, that more charges are expected to come, and that his manifesto talks about trying to take out as many high-ranking officials as possible, and that they have facts that will make his intent very clear. They also just wanted to give a message to everyone in the country and really around the world who's been watching this entire situation in horror over the last couple of days that political violence has to stop. The rhetoric has to come down. The violence has to stop. They are continuing on to take questions from the reporters who are in the room, many of them who were in the room on Saturday night when all of this took place. But we're going to continue on with our programming here on Chicago Live. Give us 2 minutes and we'll be back with our next conversation. Our next guest is on the line. .45, welcome back everyone. As we have been mentioning throughout the show, we've been taking a lot of breaking news today. Very important though to get up to date on all of the major things happening throughout our country and really around the world. But also right here at home, we have been hearing a lot about wonderful things coming back or coming to for the first time even, the Mag Mile. And it's a beautiful thing to see. We got another one of those updates today. And so I want to go ahead and bring in David Stone of Stone Real Estate. He is the lead retail leasing agent for Water Tower Place. Drop the news on us, sir.
Well, Anita, the Water Tower is back. Michigan Avenue is recovering, and we're on to a new phase on Michigan Avenue retail.
Talk about, when we say recovering, where we've been. Like, how bleak did things get, do you think?
During the pandemic, Michigan Avenue was hit very hard, as were other high streets around the country were hit equally as hard. And I think it took Michigan Avenue a little bit longer to recover, but in the last year and 2 years, it has dramatically recovered. I have not really seen a street get better, get well this quickly.
That's a wonderful thing. What do you think that's attributed to?
I think it's momentum. Retailers are not pioneers. They don't like to do things by themselves and take a lot of risk, especially big retailers, public retailers. So now that things like the Harry Potter store opened and the Hand in the Eye has opened and the Candy Museum, the Candy Hall of Fame is opening across the street, I think a lot of the risk has been taken out of the equation for retailers. And plus they'll have a lot more co-tenancy. There's a lot more retailers around them on the street, which will help them feel comfortable taking the dive into Michigan Avenue or coming back in some cases to Michigan Avenue like Uniqlo.
So for Water Tower Place, what was it versus what will it be?
So what Water Tower is a regional mall anchored by 2 department stores. Originally Lord & Taylor and Marshall Fields, then Macy's. Now what it will be is a urban multi-level specialty shopping center on what is a much stronger street, Michigan Avenue. So if you remember when you used to walk into Water Tower, right when you walked in the door, you just saw a 2-story escalator leading to who knows where. And if you didn't know what was up there, you wouldn't know anything was up there. So you had to go up there and then to discover that, there's all these stores up here. So what will happen now is that escalator entirely goes away and the first floor becomes a real retail floor going all the way back to the Ritz-Carlton. So the first floor is a shopping floor. Those escalators get moved to the sides, so you'll go right up to the second floor, or you can go right up to the mezzanine, which is where Food Life used to be, and that will be our new food component, which will be much more interesting. Water Tower has a very interesting history with food service, and we intend to continue that with Chicago-based restaurant operators.
Wow. All right, you are selling this. What's the price tag like for you all?
Well, the investment is more than $170 million, which by my little research is the second highest investment on North Michigan Avenue in 10 years, at least 10 years. Second only to the Tribune Tower renovation.
Wow. And what was the decision like to say now's the time to make that type of investment?
Well, this has been going on behind the scenes for about 4 years. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes that people didn't see. We've been talking to retailers, talking to owners of other multi-level urban shopping centers like this, talking to retail real estate brokers, trying to make sure that we got this right. I mean, Water Tower is a very complicated asset, and it's got some challenges that we are undoing, that we're fixing, that were done 50 years ago. So, after 50 years, everything needs a little bit of an upgrade, and we're doing that right now. So it's not new. It's been going on. It's continuing to go on, and we're ready. It turns out we're ready, and we think the street has now caught up to us as well. So we feel pretty good about our timing.
Wonderful. And what is the timeline like from here?
The plan is to start about a year from now, at the end of the first quarter of 2027, and then to reopen in 2028. Now, we're going to keep as many tenants open in the shopping center as we possibly can, so it will remain a vibrant place to shop. But there will be construction going on, obviously.
This is new, of course, that everyone's kind of finding out about this, but what's been the reaction thus far?
So far, I knew there'd be a strong reaction to this, but much more than I expected, frankly. Most retailers want to know what's going on at Water Tower. The restaurateurs we've been talking about all want to know what's going on with Water Tower. We'll have a little bit of experiential. We'll have a lot of apparel and some significant dining. So people want to know what that is. Water Tower is really the last piece, in my opinion, the last big piece on Michigan Avenue to get resolved. And once Water Tower reopens, I think the street in total will be done and ready, which will take 2 more years. Michigan Avenue's had a great last 2 years. I think it's still a year away from really being fully vibrant, and we'll be introducing right about that time.
What does that mean to you to be a part of the comeback?
It's an honor. I moved to Chicago in the early 80s, and my first job was with Levy organization that operated 5 restaurants in Water Tower. So I spent a good part of my first few years here in Water Tower. And so this is kind of for me, it's going back to the beginning of where I started here. So I'm very proud to be involved in it.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time out to give us the update. As I was mentioning, as I was getting ready to speak with you, it warms our hearts to be able to deliver that good news about things coming back to the Mag Mile. So congratulations on getting it this far, and we can't wait until 2028 for the big opening day.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take care.
You too.
All right, everyone, it's 2:51, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to move on to our next conversation. Welcome back, everyone. 2:55 right now, and we're moving right along with our conversations here on Chicago Live. We've had many conversations over the last 6 weeks now of the ripple effects coming from the war in Iran, whether it be gas prices or what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz that's making so many other things increase over time. And many of them are hurting farmers especially hard here in our state. Even the fertilizer costs have gone up as a result of the ripple effects. So we have Jerry Costello II, Director of the Illinois Department of Agriculture, joining me right now to talk about what our farmers are experiencing and the outlook moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, and it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on to talk about our ag community, what's going on in the economy when it comes to agriculture.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've heard it put that everything we eat, everything we wear, it all comes from our farmers. So we owe them a debt of gratitude for sure. What have the last 6 weeks been like for that community?
The last 6 weeks have been extremely difficult for a number of reasons, but this is also an extension of what's gone on over the last year, because farmers dealt with a number of different tariff policies over the last year, literally worldwide, a very, I would say, unstable footing. And farmers, men and women, they're businessmen and women just like any other business. And they make these decisions according to what's going on in the marketplace. Specifically talking about the Iran war, since February 28th, obviously fuel prices have gone up over 30%, from around $3 to over nationwide. But fertilizer costs have shot through the roof. Urea specifically, about 52% of the world's urea comes from the Middle East. 20% of it comes from Iran and Egypt, just those three. So that's a, especially for the production of. Also ammonia. About 30% of the ammonia in the world comes through the Strait of Hormuz. I would 50% of sulfur comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So, all of these things are adding up to extremely high costs from an input perspective for farmers, and it's also occurring at a time when commodity prices, so what they're receiving for their crops when they sell them, is low. So it's been a very, very tough time in the ag community over the last 6 to 7 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you made a really good point about the fact that this extends well beyond just the last couple of months, because even the tariffs, hit the farming community very hard as well, the back and forth there. And so what are you hearing from the people that you represent? I mean, in terms of the sacrifices they're having to make, or, what they're having to do to get through this?
So the major issue in all, you add all of this up, you look at the input costs, so what they're having to put into raising those crops versus what they're receiving for the crops when they sell it. A break-even for a farmer on a bushel of corn in the state of Illinois is roughly about $4.65 a bushel. So it's costing them $4.65 a bushel to produce that corn, and right now the marketplace is paying them about $4.25. So you're losing 40 cents a bushel. The average farmer is producing around 200 bushels per acre in the state of Illinois. That's a statewide average. So take that 200 times 40 cents. That's what they're losing. Soybeans, and Illinois is the #1 producer of soybeans in the United States. We're the #2 producer of corn in the United States. If you look at soybeans, break even for a farmer is about $11.65, and they're receiving just about $11 a bushel.
Ooh.
So they're losing 65 cents a bushel on soybeans, and they're producing somewhere around probably 65 to 68 bushels an acre. So, times that, the 68 times 65 cents. And when you carry that out over 100 acres or 1,000 or 2,000 acres, they add up to major losses.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for many. I even spoke at one point in time with a farmer who was like a 4th or 5th generation farmer, and he was like, I don't know that anyone has experienced what I've experienced over the last year. I do want to ask you, what is their message to the Trump administration? Because many of them have been supportive of the Trump administration.
And this is just information that I've read, but somewhere in the area of about 86% of farmers voted for President Trump. And many of them, the majority that I'm speaking to, are extremely frustrated with the policies of the Trump administration. The tariff policies, now the war in Iran, it is all compounded to put agriculture in, honestly, probably a position that we haven't been in since the 1980s. It's somewhat of a catastrophic effect when you add all of these together. I would also tell you one of the issues we have in the state of Illinois, the average age of a farmer in our state is 58.6 years old. We have more people farming over 75 than under 35.
Wow.
So trying to get, kids, the younger generation, into farming right now is extremely difficult because of the costs and the barriers of entry into agriculture.
That doesn't bode well for the future of the industry. Thank you so much for taking the time, though, to let us in, again, on what's such an important community, really, throughout the country, and especially here in Illinois. We need to hear those voices. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. And as you know, ag is the #1 industry in the state of Illinois. It's about a $26.4 billion annual economic impact.
Yeah. Well, we hope that things turn around very quickly for such an important group of folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It is 3:03, everyone. We're in our final hour here on Chicago Live for the day. It's been a busy one. Let's take a quick 2-minute break. I'll set you up for where we're going from here. All right, welcome back, everyone. 3:05 right now. Let's talk a little bit about where we're going in this final hour here on Chicago Live for the day. We still have a pretty jam-packed lineup here. Before we send you over to the 4 o'clock show, we're going to speak to the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Environment here in the state. And we're going to talk about Argonne, the new facility, what's going on there, how it's going to be used. It should be an interesting conversation about some new things that are happening there and their strategic mission here for labs and industry in our state. We also anticipate a little bit more movement. We have, if you were with us in the 2 o'clock hour, kind of been tracking where King Charles and Queen Camilla, as they arrived, we were right there looking as they arrived here in the U.S. For their visit. And so we saw when they landed, we saw the red carpet rolled out for the royals from their plane to a waiting public there, and now we await their arrival at the White House, and they'll be meeting with President Trump and, of course, First Lady Melania very soon. You can see the guard is there already. The red carpet is already rolled out. The U.S. and U.K. Flags are already out, so we don't expect it to be too much longer, but as soon as they arrive, we will take that live picture and see how things go there. They will be here, I believe, for 4 days in the U.S. There are various things on their itinerary that we'll be talking about as well. And so there are a few things that we're still kind of waiting on as well. But let's get to our first conversation. We know we have so many people who watch us on a regular basis and love true crime. And if you do, you know the name John Wayne Gacy very well. It dates back, and so in the 1990s, he actually published a book. It was about his arrest, and it was titled A Question of Doubt. And we have Chloe Manon, a curator at Grave Face Museum, who is joining me now as they get ready to make the text accessible yet again to so many folks who I'm sure will be diving into this very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Okay. I need to know, before we get any further, about the pictures behind you.
Yeah. So just to fill you in, I'm actually at our physical museum in Savannah, Georgia. We do have another location in Chicago in the Bucktown neighborhood. But the wall behind me actually has all of the photos of the known and identified victims of the Gacy case, because a huge part of the museum and how it came to be was actually researching the unanswered questions that this case left behind. As you know, or I'm sure people who know about the Gacy case know, there are still 5 unidentified victims to this day. And that's actually one of the things that started this whole process for Ryan and I, my husband and I. I was hoping to get answers and actually bring some finality and closure to some of these loose ends that were never wrapped up.
Yeah, and I wonder how many family members are still around of those who are pictured behind you.
Yeah, there are actually, we've communicated with several people who had family members who were victims of Gacy. And that's something that is, we take super seriously, because it is such a huge missed part of true crime, I find, is you tend to forget about the victims themselves and the people that those victims left behind. And those ripple effects you can feel still to this day, even though the case is decades old. And I know it's technically solved. There are still, again, so many questions that remain to this day. One of the biggest things, too, for us, we believe that there are actually more victims of this case, even though there were 33 and that was just an insurmountable amount of people. That I don't think is the tip of the iceberg, or I think that is just the tip of the iceberg, rather. I don't think that's the total number of victims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in republishing the book, you're hoping that maybe new people come forward to say, hey, I have a question about something that happened to a relative of mine or someone that I knew or a neighbor that I had as well?
Yeah, so that is absolutely one potential outcome. Certainly, I think the central focus is keeping the case relevant. And again, keeping the conversation going about the questions that remain to this day. In addition to the idea that there were additional victims, even maybe victims in other states, we do have some pretty strong leads that there were just so many stones left unturned on the investigation side of things, just for the sake of being done with it, which the conclusion and his execution, which we're coming up on the anniversary of, it was a satisfactory conclusion, but that's just not the end of it. But yeah, keeping the case relevant and keeping people talking about it, I think, is important. And yeah, that's one of the goals.
Mm-hmm. So the timing, did you specifically, kind of set your release date right around the timing, the anniversary that you were just describing?
So yeah, that was a consideration, just for being a museum, being historically just focused on historical events and timelines. It being such a significant date was a factor. This book that Gacy published was one of the last things that was done before the execution took place in 1994. So it's a relevant part of the whole story. And that being said, too, the contents of the book it's interesting from looking at it at a psychological perspective. You get to digest a lot about just this narcissistic personality and this just giving you so much information about almost the minutia to make it seem like he's telling you a lot and confessing a lot. But meanwhile, he's leaving you with wondering specifics for like the important stuff, you would think. But again, it's part of the whole narrative and it's part of the whole case. And so again, we're looking at things from like a holistic point of view. And it's basically this very notorious serial killer's version of reality. And again, you don't always get a chance to crawl into the mind of any of these people after they're gone. So this is just one way to do so beyond the interviews that are already out there and accessible.
What do you say to people who feel like it may glamorize a person who did horrific things instead of putting it in the past.
Well, I do understand where that comes from for sure, but I also think that forgetting this isn't the right answer. And I don't think that leaving so many questions to this day on the table is the right way to handle this. If the case was different, if we were more satisfied maybe with the fact that, say, Gacy was very forthcoming and he told us exactly how many victims there were, and those leads were checked out and they were exhausted and everything was final and complete, I do think it would be a different conversation. I don't think that that was obviously the case with Gacy. There were so many times even he himself confesses to more murders that were never looked into. So there's so many instances, if you just peel the layers back of this case, that there's so many questions that still remain, and that's really why we're doing this. I don't think that we wouldn't be having this conversation about this case if there weren't questions that remain to this day.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever have concerns that it could re-victimize some of the family members who are left behind?
And that's, again, another important thing to consider. And we, based on, again, the ones that we have talked to and spoken with, most of the people, at least, again, that we've been able to contact, have been very understanding of our intention and goals with all of this, and appreciate the fact that their loved ones aren't being forgotten. On the flip side of things, the unfortunate reality is their loved ones were victimized by this person and have been in history. That's how this has talked about and how they have been known to the public. And so I think on the flip side of that, it is nice to be able to actually separate out, and instead of just focusing on Gacy, again, we're looking at things holistically, and that's why we do talk about the victims in the museum. That's why we do talk about all of the things that you're bringing up, as opposed to, again, just focusing on like this one part of the story or just this one little part. We're talking about, again, everything, and trying to, again, make sense of it and just make people, again, aware that there's just so many things that remain unanswered.
Mm-hmm. And you, speaking of families, were able to get Gacy's sister, Karen, to do the introduction. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that conversation and what her addition to this republishing will mean for people who get it.
Yeah, so Karen, John's younger sister, became a good friend of ours actually through this whole process. She became aware of our research and what Ryan and I have been doing as far as looking into additional victims and victims in other states, and just the general mishandling of some of this investigation from day one that overlooked massive parts of this case that should have been presented back then. So she was being aware of all of this, was in favor of somebody taking this seriously and looking into it. And she did help with what she could, as far as putting us in touch with people that she remembers handling this case early on, people that she had remained in contact with. And she also, at the same time, didn't want to just be remembered as, the sister of this serial killer. She wanted to have her own story be told. And so that's also part of what we do with this museum, and talk a little bit about that relationship and how it formed. But really, she was very amenable to talking with Ryan and I. We were very fond of her likewise. And her contribution is a foreword, basically just explaining that she, like so many people, were blindsided by the discovery of Gacy and his crimes. She thought she knew him better than anybody and was caught completely off guard by the fact that there were these victims buried under his own house. Oh. And so she had to deal with that in her own ways, and had basically spent her entire life trying to reconcile that, just that feeling and that betrayal, and that just navigate that. Now, her forward does mention, this is Gacy's version of reality. It is by no means the complete story. It's his perspective, which innately will be slanted and it will be flawed. Again, being a psychopathic narcissist, there you see that come out. But yeah, her forward to it does give a little bit more humanity and bring this case, I think, down to reality in a way. Like, it's easy to believe and talk about serial killers as though they're like a fictionalized being, as opposed to thinking and talking about them as human beings that are so different from the norm that they do unimaginable things. And I think when you do talk about serial killers and call them things like monsters, it does take away the social responsibility, the importance of psychology, the importance of so much of the conversation. And so I think even just if it does it a little bit, I think just hearing from a sister of a serial killer.
Humanize someone who does generally despicable things. You saw how caught off guard I was even by seeing all of their faces behind you when your picture popped up. It is hard for people to digest serial killers and what the totality, the mentality, all of those things. I'm sure, be it that you were, getting all of the details and preparing for this moment to release this work, you were watching this Gilgo Beach murder suspect, Rex Heuermann, who has now admitted to killing many people. What do you see as different in a case like John Wayne Gacy that captured the nation's attention back then, and what we're seeing now in somebody like this Rex Heuermann? Guy, or different or the same?
I wouldn't consider myself, ironically, a true crime person. This one case is fascinating to me because there are so many facets to it. And my husband is more or less in the same boat. I would say even more so. He grew up in the Chicago area, so he was personally affected hearing about this, even the ripple effects decades after, obviously, Gacy's arrest. But I do think that there's something to be said as a larger topic with how serial killers and violent killers are talked about now in media versus then. As you, I'm sure, could go back and see archival records, the news reports, and all of that stuff back then for Gacy was very much as things are happening, people are reporting on it, versus now we're a little bit more careful because we don't want to say something that will, create an issue later down the line when you're going to trial with a case. I think people are a little bit more maybe aware, but I do also think simultaneously we are a little bit more desensitized. And I think that we have been desensitized for a really, really long time. So it's no longer it's still just as heinous, but you're almost used to hearing about it, and it's almost like you're expecting it, as opposed to maybe back then that was lacking. And that's also why we have we do talk a lot about the victims in the museum, and that is a central focus of the research we're doing. And really the goal is, again, just bringing some awareness to the whole story, as opposed to, a lot of people will say, I love watching true crime podcasts, I love watching documentaries and so on, but it's easier to detach yourself, I think, from the reality of it. And the reality of it is there are real people who were victims of these cases. So I don't think that that's something that should be forgotten or should be left out. And I think maybe with documentaries and the even true crime books and podcasts and stuff, I do think that it's easier maybe to detach a little bit. And the popularization of these topics in media it's part of it.
Very interesting points there. Very interesting points. So when will people be able to look at this book again?
Yeah, so we have the copies in hand now. and we will begin shipping them this week. So they are available on our website right now, which is just grayfacemuseum.com. And if this is a text or if this is a case that is really interesting to anybody, or if something that is something that you just want to see what is going through somebody like Gacy's mind, again, from a psychological perspective, there's a lot to digest with it. So definitely it's available now though, and just up for pre-order. They will be shipping, and the official release date is May 10th.
And I just have a couple more questions before I let you go. But I mean, you mentioned like getting into this person's mind. How do you sleep at night? Like how yeah.
No, I've always been fascinated with psychology. I started going to school for social work, and that's just been something, again, from like a more helping people perspective, obviously, but I do think that there's something to be said about abnormal psychology and the importance of understanding it. So from my point of view, it's part of reality, and maybe I'm even desensitized a little bit, but at the same time, I wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a goal that was a net positive, if that makes sense at all. I think talking about all this all the time, every day when I'm in here, we actually are the only guided, docent-driven museum of our kind. So all of our docents are trained to, they talk about all this stuff, they do it every day, and they all have the same perspective and outlook, which is it's important to inform people. There's a lot of misinformation with true crime cases as well that does happen, so we like to correct some of the misinformation that does pop up from time to time, but we also try to, again, just bring this to reality and also make people aware, bring them up to speed maybe on our larger goal, which again is positive ultimately.
Yeah. What else is in there? What else have you spent time digging into there that you showcase there?
So in the museum, we have in at least the Gacy exhibit, some death row artwork that he was using to finance his legal expenses, which there were many because he was filing appeals on death row and using the money he made from painting to pay off his attorneys, which we get into the whole death row, the appeals and what those looked like and the specifics of those. So some of that, and of course, correspondence and letters. But most of it actually came from tracking down the people that knew him really well so that we can just ask them questions and pick their brain and get their stories. No different than how we communicated with his sister Karen, who was the executor of his estate. So she ended up with everything in his cell at the time of his death, and she passed along pretty much everything that she kept over the years to us. So that is another side of things that you can see as well, like Gacy's logbook from prison where he's tracking who he's communicating with and just all the minutiae on death row, things that he was doing from, day in, day out, which again, from a historical research perspective is extremely important to us. We've already culled through, archived it, and digitized it, so now we have it on display.
And because you've done so much research into him, I wonder, I don't want to give everything away from your book, but what you make of the makings of him, like how he started. And I ask you that because we were having a conversation just recently, even about like a local incident, which is still unsolved here, where a bunch of dead dogs were found. I think it was 6 that were found. And the sheriff, as he's giving his press conference, did make mention to the fact that sometimes this is how people who are not stable end up taking out people, is that they start with animals. Could have been something else, sure. He also mentioned the possibility of like dog fighting, but since we still don't have a suspect in this case, what do you make of the makings of someone like a John Wayne Gacy, where he started to get to all of what we know to be today?
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation because unlike the certain serial killers that do exhibit a lot of telltale signs like the violence against other children when they're growing up or animal abuse and murdering animals, he didn't exhibit those things. There were other things that happened in his life. Mainly it was turned inwardly. It was a lot of trauma that was, early on in developmental years, like, sexual abuse from a young age by a family friend and neighbor. And that's just what we know. Beyond that, there is possibility that some other things happened, but at the very least, we know that there was sexual abuse from the ages of like 4 until 10.
Wow.
And that is significant, and that does, not that that excuses or justifies, but it does help us understand where some of these building blocks start. In addition to that, his father was an abusive alcoholic who was very verbal about his dissatisfaction with the fact that his son, named John Wayne for a reason, he was supposed to be manly, he was supposed to be tough, was more into girly things in his dad's opinion. His dad was born in 1900. He was a product of his times, unfortunately, and that did come with some ingrained homophobia. And so naturally, his dad, seeing his son exhibit signs of being gay, that was a big issue. And he made it very clear that he was not happy with his son. Now, those little things, not that they explain, but they help us kind of understand. And not that everybody that has that similar experience when they're children too, or worse experiences, if we're thinking of things in like a linear scale, not everyone's going to do this. And that's what is worth the conversation, is like, well, what is the difference?
Yeah.
He also did experience some head trauma early on in his early formative years too.
We could talk all day.
I know.
It's kind of a dark road, but it is, it begs so many questions. It really does. It begs so many questions. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We certainly appreciate it. We'll tell everybody one more time where they can find this book and find the museum.
Yeah, thank you. And it's grayfacemuseum.com. And our physical museums can be found right now in Chicago. We have a location in Bucktown and on Milwaukee Avenue, 1829 Milwaukee Avenue, and then all the way in Savannah, Georgia. That was actually our main headquarters location. That's where the museum started.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate talking to you.
All right. Everyone, it's 3:30. Give us 2 minutes and we'll be back. right, 3:30 everyone, and let's dive into our next conversation about Argonne, the new facility, and what they're going to be able to do with it. We have the Department of Energy Assistant Secretary, who we're so honored to have with us today, Audrey Robertson. Thank you so much for your time.
Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about this, the new technology that has allowed you all to kind of walk into a new wave, a new chapter.
No, absolutely. What we're here to talk about today is called the Heavy Duty Dynamometer Facility, which is essentially a facility that allows us to test and validate different technologies, in this case with large trucking. If you sit back and look at the contribution to the United States economy from trucking, it's about 6.3% of GDP. That's your transportation services. If we're able to reduce the cost of trucking by even a small amount, we can have a big impact on the pocketbooks of everyday Americans. So this is one facility, the only facility that allows us to test and validate off-road big trucks, essentially. How do we increase efficiency of those engines and those trucks in general? So it's a tremendous asset to the country and the lab.
I'm sure. It sounds like it. I mean, what is your overall opinion about like being a part of this new wave and having the ability to do these new things?
Oh, it is so exciting. The Department of Energy is laser focused on taking innovation and research in our national labs like Argonne here in Illinois and helping translate that into real opportunities for companies to embrace new technology, which translates into lower costs for consumers and the opportunity to take technology that maybe only existed in a national lab into the public sector. So this is a great opportunity to have both international as well as a number of other auto companies and engine manufacturers partner with us to make this facility a success.
You mentioned the lower cost for consumers, and affordability really is a big talking point this year. I wonder if you can maybe talk a little bit more about just how much of a difference this could make, and at a time like this.
Sure. Well, just a 1% energy savings in the fleet of trucks we have can contribute $1 to $2 billion of savings per year for everyday Americans. So we're trying to find opportunities that are maybe small in scale, but can really create tangible savings for everyday Americans. In this particular instance, it is for large off-road trucking. But we are at the Department of Energy looking for every opportunity to reduce the cost of everything from your food to housing to electricity and obviously at the pump. So areas that impact every American. And the Department of Energy's vast national labs, Argonne here is one of 17 national labs. We have dedicated teams and focused research around finding those opportunities to reduce costs for everyday Americans. That's in, as I said, housing, agriculture, transportation, just to name a few.
Where exactly is this, and how many jobs does it bring to market?
It depends. For this particular facility, the dynamometer, I don't have an exact number of the exact jobs that this in particular will bring to market, but I can tell you that without this type of facility, it would be very difficult for any large trucking company to adopt some of the new technologies that will increase efficiency of both their underlying engines as well as the routes they take. But I'd love to get back to you on exact numbers. I don't have those numbers handy.
Sure, I'm just always interested. You know, again, when we talk about affordability, jobs come hand in hand. So when we talk about something new, I wonder how many new opportunities this provides. The release says it's basically a road in a lab because it's turning things over to then get to these vehicles quicker. Let's address that aspect of it, that it's making things faster and how important that is.
Absolutely. Think of it like a treadmill for a giant truck, for a semi-trailer or for a school bus. How can we redesign or design or change the way we are operating these large trucks, and to do that in environments that can simulate going up hills, going down hills, using autonomous driving technology, which they're doing in some states right now. But how can we do that here in a laboratory environment to identify the ways that we can reduce fuel consumption, increase the efficiency of these large engines? So these just don't exist in other places. But the team here at Argonne and our partners realized this was going to be necessary to have the adoption of what these new technologies in the heavy-duty truck space.
First of its kind. It's amazing, really, to see all of these things come along. Thank you so much for your time today. Truly, we're honored to have you on the show, and we appreciate your work making things, newer, faster, and more accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone, it's 3:39 right now. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to bring in one very busy man today, and that is JD Rudd, so we can talk about the weather. Welcome back, everyone. 341. We have a little breaking news that you can see on Instagram. The princess has arrived.
That's right.
It's like the royals today.
Yes,
the princess has
the
arrived.
The real princess has shown up. Our
Fox
own
Chicago,
princess.
our princess has arrived. So congratulations to Emily and the baby and the whole family.
Yes.
So now your job is like really official here.
Yeah, I'm in this for a little
You
bit
are
now.
in this now.
While Emily's doing the hard stuff at home with the baby. So.
Well, you brought in a little rumble with you.
Listen, you got to make a grand entrance,
well,
right?
There you
and
go.
That's how we've done things today. Yeah, we were expecting 2 rounds of thunderstorms, and we had that first one come through. And here's the thing about that first round: the rain and thunder itself wasn't that bad. It's behind that system. We had these really powerful winds, around 50 to 60 miles per hour. There have been so many areas with trees down, power lines down, power outages as well.
Wow.
It's been a little bit rough with
Already?
this first line. Yes, and we're not out of the woods yet. There could be a second round of thunderstorms later on this evening after about 6, 7 o'clock. Those may be individual cells that produce some heavy rain, some gusty wind, maybe some rotation as well. So we'll keep our eyes out on that whole thing. But It's been a bumpy start to our week for many areas.
I was telling our producers that my loved ones downstate actually had to shelter in the basement earlier today.
Yes, for areas well south of here, southern Illinois over to Missouri into Kansas, they have been rocked hard overnight tonight. Here's that radar from last night into this morning. This activity has kind of been sitting there for the last several hours. Those red boxes you see, that's an active tornado watch. The yellow boxes are severe thunderstorm watches, and then you've got warnings in place as well, because this has been just a gnarly afternoon with this storm line coming through. The top end that you see there near Fort Wayne, that was the activity that came through here earlier today. That has now moved eastward, but like I mentioned, behind that was that strong wind action. And as far as the overall severe weather risk goes, you can kind of see that bullseye right there over the St. Louis area. They're going to get hard. Southern Illinois, they're getting rocked today. But the thing is, some of those leftovers could spill our direction this evening. Now, what's working in our favor is that morning round of rain that we had and this lingering cloud cover.
Really?
The less sun we see today, the better. It's less fuel for the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it's still possible that we get these stronger storms, but it's also possible we go through the evening on the quieter side.
That'd be great.
I'd rather us, though, be safe than sorry, so just be careful.
Yeah. Whenever the sun pops out on a day where you all say it's going to be an active weather day, I'm like, that was not.
We don't need that.
We did not need to see you today.
And it's tough because with the cloud cover and the rain, it's keeping the temperatures down in some cases. And for many folks, we're hitting the end of April.
Yeah.
I mean, out of school season is coming up. People are itching to get out and do things. They want it to be warm. This is one of those days. Let's just keep it cool. It'll help us out in terms of thunderstorms.
And so the yellow that we're sitting in, I want to ask you a couple of questions about it. One, what comes with the yellow typically? And then two, we've actually been downgraded, right, from where we thought we were going to be?
Yesterday we were in that shade of orange, a level 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather. But then with that stuff that came through earlier today, the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma said, well, it doesn't look to be as dynamic, so they pulled us back out of that. We're still in that level 2 risk, which this is where it gets wonky, and I could spend a whole hour talking about this.
We got time.
The typical, the actual term for it's called a slight risk. But that wording, people go, oh, it's just a slight risk. They overlook that. Sometimes you can get some very damaging storms in a slight risk situation. You have to look at it in terms of overall odds and chances. And when we say this, it's a level 2 out of 5. It's basically a 20% chance of some storm in that area being on the strong to severe side that could produce large hail, damaging wind gusts, and tornadoes. Doesn't mean everyone's going to get it, but somewhere in that area there is a chance for that to happen. And we are still in that area because we could get some of those dynamics later on this afternoon as that activity down to our south tries to work its way back this direction.
And so for the folks looking at that big blob of red there in St. Louis, we would anticipate for them.
So for those areas down there, if you know anybody out of the south, they're in trouble this afternoon. They're going to get the worst of this activity. I don't think it's that bad coming our direction. We just kind of get the leftovers from it, but there still could be 1 or 2 stronger thunderstorms roughly 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. tonight. We got to keep our eyes on.
Okay, I promise you 2 questions, and the one popped in my brain. The 4 o'clock will come and go. You know, we'll get to it when we get to it. I will let you go momentarily here. But we have talked so much about these rivers. Over the last couple of weeks. Where do we stand at this point in time? Does this make things way worse, or are they actually getting better?
No, the rain that we had earlier was pretty heavy at times, and it was all-encompassing across the entire area. So I know on the Fox River, this was not what they wanted earlier today. Granted, it didn't last all day long, but it was so heavy. A lot of areas picking up around 3/4 to an inch of rainfall, and that's just water we don't need. And if we get more tonight, again, that's more water that we don't need. So some folks are dealing with water. And then with power outages too, keep that in mind. You've got some pumps now that aren't able to work. You got people trying to find out, well, how do I get this water out of my basement? How do I prevent it? A whole list of issues there too.
Okay, and then where do we go from here?
Nowhere but up, so to speak.
Well,
this is our bumpy
light
day.
at the end of the tunnel.
This is the one rough day today. We get through this. There could be a wayward shower tomorrow night. I'm not thinking severe weather. The only downside is we won't have active thunderstorms, but it's going to get cool later on this week. Temperatures only in the 50s, low 50s for highs. So there's always
fair
something.
exchange.
It's always but again, people are itching for it to be warm. They're going, come on, I got to get the coat back out.
I know.
In late April,
I saw some girls out taking like prom pictures. I'm like,
Oh, it's so tough this time of year. You got those dresses, and everyone's just
Yeah.
shivering, but they're doing it for the gram. They're doing it for whatever. They're like, well, we got to do this. Yeah, I know, it's tough.
Look like it's warm. It's going to live on forever, you know.
As their goosebumps are 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for coming
course,
up. We'll
Nina.
get you downstairs for the 4 o'clock news. It's coming up quick. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 minutes, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. 3:50 right now. We certainly appreciate you staying with us throughout the show. And we're getting to our final conversation for the day before we let you go over to the 4 o'clock news. And this one is super important. You know, the goal is for all of us to age and for all of us to, you know, have governmental institutions that look out for us along the way, right? Cynthia Vargas with the City of Evanston is joining me now. I saw that you all have a new emergency bracelet program. Tell me a little bit about the why for it.
Yes, you're correct. We have launched a program, and essentially, in recognition of Autism Acceptance Month, and in April, we have launched the Voluntary Emergency Communication Bracelet Program to support residents with disabilities, including autistic individuals, people with dementia, and those with hidden disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So we are very excited about the program. Since the launch, we've received 79 applications, and there is no cap for Evanston residents to apply. So there's not a limit to the number of applications we could receive at this time. It's been an overwhelming response for this, for such a recent launch, and that's a positive thing. So we are very, very happy that people are engaging.
Yeah, and my mind immediately when I saw it immediately went to the dementia aspect of it, but because of what I have, gone through in my own family, having someone with dementia and the trials and tribulations for every family that deals with someone who has dementia. Autism, another huge one, and we're just, it's the end of Autism Awareness Month, and no time like the present to really raise the awareness there as well. So they are blue, which makes sense from that standpoint. Tell me a little bit about the program and what people should know if they're hearing it right now and they're thinking, my loved one could use this, or I could use it.
Yeah, for City of Evanston residents, This program was inspired by the Oak Park Police Department's emergency ID bracelet program. So our accessibility and inclusion division reached out to them, got a little bit of information, and then we developed kind of a model that was going to be effective and then tailored to our city residents. It was a collaborative effort between the care team, the Evanston Police Department, the Evanston Fire Department, and the Parks and Recreation Accessibility and Inclusion Division. The goals are to provide a voluntary option for individuals with disabilities to share important safety-related details with first responders, provide an immediate visual cue for first responders, alerting them that an individual may have a hidden disability or may have unique needs related to communication and safety. We want to allow for efficient communication to emergency contacts, and then increase a sense of safety and connectedness during emergency situations. So essentially, people are able to gain access to this bracelet by filling out a form that's on our website. We also have this on our city's Facebook page on social media, so people can access that press release or the application through our social media channel, Facebook. And then the other piece to this is that the city, an ADA coordinator, or the ADA team here at the city will be contacting the applicants to ensure that they understand how to use a bracelet when first responders arrive, to ensure that they understand the purpose or family members understand the purpose, and to ensure that there are ways that law enforcement or first responders can connect with people seeking assistance. Every nameplate is unique to every applicant, and this is the other reason why our department, our ADA department, is connecting with these individuals who are applying. And blue is also coincidentally one of our city brand colors, so naturally it really works for us and to and for it to be identified by first responders and maybe some emergency contacts. So essentially that's in a nutshell, what the program entails and how people can access it.
And just briefly talk about the difference it can make.
We understand that sometimes there could be barriers to be able to communicate or effectively understand what the environment and the situation is, both for first responders and people accessing help. And so this essentially opens up the doors to confidence, feel for safety, and to be able to establish the rapport that's necessary between first responders and community members to ensure that we're not missing key details during the response. And I think that makes a whole slew of a difference in the sense of, let's get the people who are accessing help as soon as possible, the most effective way possible, and ensure that if need be, in a really stressful situation, that we're saving lives through this program as well.
Absolutely. That is of the utmost importance. Thank you so much for your time today and for what you all are doing. Again, I think it's going to help so many people, so many families breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope everyone who needs it takes advantage of this opportunity to get one of those bracelets. Just that visual cue could really make a difference when things are a little chaotic or confusing for many. Let's take a 2-minute break. We'll be back to close out the show. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We'll be right back at it from 1 to 4 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to turn you over to the 4 o'clock news.
Kind of sown the seeds for crazy people to do what happened Saturday night. So we will see. I mean, again, this is going to be interesting because it's not the first rodeo with Jimmy Kimmel.
Exactly.
So stay tuned.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.
A lot of new information is coming in this afternoon, including updates on that fatal shooting of a CPD officer. Just how did a suspect get his hands on a gun inside a hospital?
The gunman from Saturday's White